name is Donna Fiesel. I'm your host of The Edge, an afternoon drive home on ICU Radio. And we're right now in Alabama, the Northeast Alabama. It's raining outside. I hope that means, Brian Brown, that we're going to have some good gardens, or is there such a thing as having
Maybe,
too much?
maybe, maybe so.
I hope so. You're with the Extension Service. Tell the
hmm
folks what you do.
So I'm a regional extension agent, and I cover Northeast Alabama. So I'm on the home grounds team,
Mhm.
which means we answer plant questions. We do a lot of presentations. So I do presentations for garden clubs. I do them for just the general public.
Mhm.
Just anywhere anybody needs me to talk, I'll do a talk for them in Northeast Alabama. Sometimes outside of that, but yeah, we do a lot of educational programs, and we use extension based information. So it's all been researched, and you can trust it. So that's kind of what we do.
And I'm glad of that. So many of you folks have told me they love the shows on gardening,
Yeah,
beekeeping, and the shows that you were on. You were telling me
yeah.
what to do with. And as a matter of fact, I've had several folks send messages. I'm really glad that Brian guy told you how to prune trees because we had a lot of success stories, and you don't know it. Sometimes your ears have to be burning, but
hmm
sometimes we'll host a show outside, and we had the biggest yield of fruit ever from these
Yeah.
fruit trees, and it's simply because of what you told me.
Well, I'm glad somebody's getting some benefit out of it. So
A lot of
it's
folks are
good to
getting a
know.
lot of
Good
benefit.
to
So
know.
I want to thank you for that because it was a lifesaver. I was about ready to chop down some trees, you
Yeah,
remember?
yeah,
Go get me something, an axe or something. Let's get rid of these trees. And you said, no, no, all you've got to do is maintenance.
yeah. And we've got a lot of pruning programs coming up. So we've got several scheduled this coming year. Usually, if anybody wants to find out where our programs are going to be located at, you can just follow. Just look for your local county if you're in Alabama. Just look for your local county's extension Facebook page. It's usually the
Mhm.
best place to get that. We try to put it out in newspapers and things like that too, but usually Facebook's the most current information for
Mhm.
that. So,
Mhm.
but yeah,
And then there's master gardeners. I hope I've got
yes.
everything completed like it should be. I haven't heard anything from you, so
Well, we're getting there. We
uh,
just today's our first day back at work after Christmas, so yeah, we're getting there. I will be sending out a schedule very soon. So Donna is going to have be our master gardener
I
this year.
can't wait. It's going to be
So
so exciting, and it's going to be really helpful off because you're on the show at least once a month. I'd
yeah.
have him on every day if I could, especially in the summertime. What are some things we need to be doing right now to be planning for that summer garden, spring garden?
So right now, one of the biggest things is probably about a month from now into February is pruning time. So you really want to be pay attention to what you're going to be pruning. So you want to prune things that are going to be blooming in the summer. So I think I mentioned the May rule last time I was here,
Uh-huh.
right? So I'll
Very
say it again.
precious.
Yeah. So um, if it blooms before May 1st, you prune it after it blooms. If it blooms after May 1st, you prune it before it
That's
blooms.
pretty
So
simple.
so if you think about azaleas, they
Mhm.
bloom early, so you need to wait until the flowers fade sometime in the summer, and then you can prune azaleas.
And let
Uh,
them have those beautiful blooms and enjoy
yeah,
it.
yeah, absolutely. So if
Mhm.
you prune those in the summertime, you're not going to have any blooms the next year
Mhm.
because what they do is they set their buds during the summer and into the fall. So if you wait till August, you're going to cut all those blooms off.
Mhm.
So you really have to be careful with that. And then there's other plants like, let's say, camellias.
Mhm.
Those are a little bit different just because
Mhm.
camellias bloom at very random times. So you just really want to look for those tiny little flower buds.
Mhm.
That's really what you want to pay attention to. If it's got flower buds on there, you need to hold off on pruning. So, but that's kind of a general rule as the May rule. There are some exceptions like hydrangeas. There's a couple of exceptions on hydrangeas.
Mhm.
But other than that, May rule is a good rule of thumb to go by.
Mhm. Now, if you have, let's just talk about, say, a peach tree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I know what you told me about that. And I know that we had a huge crop of peaches, lots of jam, and I tried a bunch of those peaches, and they're
Mm-hmm.
really good on those fried apple or fried peach
Oh yeah,
pies
yep.
as well. Okay. So we just had limbs blowing everywhere. I mean, they're just everywhere. And my thoughts were, and this is because I'm not a farmer and I'm turning into one and from years of not having something like
Mhm.
this living in town. And so you were absolutely right. The way you talked about on the peach tree, the flow kind of in the middle of the tree
Yep,
needs to be
correct.
need to have the flow there.
Yep.
So we had like several branches just coming up from everywhere. I was at a total loss. I didn't know which one we needed to cut down.
Mhm.
Which ones of the
Yeah,
ones need to be
so
pruned.
peaches, when you plant a peach tree, it really breaks people's heart when you plant a peach tree because you really need to, the middle main trunk of the tree is growing straight up, and when you
Mhm.
plant one, you really need to cut that out. And
Uh-huh.
it hurts people's heart when you plant that peach tree that you just paid for
Mhm.
to take that and just snip the middle out of it. But
Mhm.
what happens is you want the peach tree to kind of look like this. I
Okay.
don't know if that's showing up
That
correctly,
makes a
but
lot of sense.
you want it to kind of look like that because what happens is you want airflow. Number one, because peaches get a lot of fungal diseases, so you want airflow in there. That's number one.
Well, wait, let me ask you a question because you mentioned the fungal disease.
Yes.
Does it also attract more pests if you don't do that, or does it matter?
Um, Not
I had a
well.
few
It
June
could. It
bug
could.
looking something that was that Brian
Yeah,
found.
there are some insects that might be like spider mites. They don't
Okay.
like airflow. So spider mites, but they're not really a huge problem on peaches
Mhm.
or anything that I know about. But the main thing is airflow for fungal diseases because fungal diseases are really bad on peaches. They get everything. If it's a fungus, a
Mhm.
peach is going to get it. Um, the other thing is when you have peaches that come out and peaches have that rosy, we call them rosy cheeks, and
Mhm.
that's what they are. You got the suture down the
Mhm.
middle of the
Uh-huh.
peach, and on each side of that, those are called the cheeks, and those
Mhm.
cheeks need to be a little bit rosy colored.
Mhm.
That's what people really look for when they're looking for peaches. So um, they need sunlight to make that happen. So when you open up that canopy, you're opening up for airflow and you're opening up for
Mhm.
sunlight to get to all the peaches around it. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, there's some nuances in pruning that, but we're hopefully going to have some more instructions on that
I'm laughing
available.
at myself
So
because
uh,
I sent him a message. I was just so proud of like hundreds of little peaches
yeah,
all over that. And you said, "No, I'm going to tell you straight.
yeah,
Like you're going to have to. Some of those are going to have to come off." And I was like,
yeah, that's right.
"No, no." And you said, "No, yeah, because you're just going to have little. They're just going to be little tiny peaches. They're not
Yeah,
going to be worth
yeah,
doing anything." And
absolutely.
you were so right about that too.
Yep.
Man, I'm feeding his ego today.
Well, when you go to college for a really really long
You need
time,
to.
and you
But it was right. You got to listen to this because this is
so
all good info. Okay, I learned the hard way.
yeah, so when you have peaches, you really need to thin them out. So um, when after they flower, they'll start forming little tiny peaches. When they get a little bit bigger than your thumb, maybe about the size of a $50.
I was afraid I'd waited too
No, no,
late.
no. Just as long as they got enough, maybe about the size of a quarter, $50. Just start picking them off the tree. I think about every 4 inches is what you want to
Okay.
keep. So,
Mhm.
um,
The
and what
cows
that
were liking
does,
them, though. I was throwing them out in the pasture. The
yeah.
cows were just, they loved them.
But if you the more peaches you pull off of there, all of that energy that was going to go into that tiny peach is now going into one peach. So rather than going
Makes
into
perfect
four,
sense.
it's going to take up the same amount of nutrients. So put all those resources into that
Mhm.
one peach instead of 4 peaches, and you'll have much better quality peaches.
Oh, and those things were like huge.
Yeah, and they kind of grow in clusters too.
Yeah,
So
right. Yeah, almost like grapes. And it was just
yeah,
like, 10 or 15. And
hmm
we were just picking a whole bunch of them
yep,
off. And
yep.
but yeah, that's just another a great idea. Let me ask you a question. This is something that was sent last year. And I just happened, I do get to your questions eventually. It may be a year, but I do get to it. I do remember when you were talking about pruning last year.
Mm-hmm.
Someone had mentioned you said cut that middle one off of the peach tree.
Yep.
Wanted to know if you could root it.
You can. You may want to dip it in some rooting hormone
Uh-huh.
and root it. It's possible. I've never done it before, but you can do that.
Mhm.
Grafting them is what a lot of people do with peaches. So if you have two varieties of peaches, you can
Mhm.
graft one in there. Now that's getting into some advanced techniques.
Oh,
Uh,
he knows all about that.
but you can actually you can graft. So it's in the Prunus genus, which is a huge.
I'm looking like, yeah, I know what he's talking
Well, it's actually a really large genus. Prunus has a lot. Cherries are Prunus,
about.
peaches, almonds. All those are genus, but actually they're in a family called Rosaceae. So that's the rose family. So Rosaceae, rose family, that includes apples, peaches, roses, and it's a huge. I mean, there are things in Rosaceae you would never dream of, like Indian hawthorn, which is an ornamental
Really?
landscape plant, is in the same family.
They're like distant cousins.
They're distant cousins. That's right. So they're all in the same family, but they're
Or
distant
Brett Ugly.
cousins. Well, that's really what we have to, you know, when we're classifying plants, there's characteristics that are across the whole, either the family or the genus.
And I can see now why that's so important to know, because then that way, however you treat one is probably the way you'll treat the others when it comes
Correct.
to certain things.
That's right, right. And there are different things. Like a rose is definitely different from a peach tree,
Mhm.
but they are in the same family. So,
Mhm.
but it's really interesting when you start grafting.
Mhm.
A lot of times you can put, like, there's peach trees that will have like several varieties of peaches and almonds, and I mean just all kinds of things on there.
Mhm.
Apricots, they
Yeah.
grow like 5 different types
Mhm.
of fruit on one tree.
And that's
So,
important to know, like when you're canning, like, what kind of peaches should I grow if I
mhm.
want, like jam,
Yeah,
or if I want to dry them. But
yeah,
I found the Alberta is what we have out here. The
hmm
Alberta, is that what it is?
Alberta.
Alberta. I found that really it works in a lot of
hmm
varieties of ways that
So
I different.
Alberta, this is really interesting to me anyway. Alberta is a really old variety, and all peaches are classified by Alberta. So if you go to a nursery that deals with peach trees or peach
Mhm.
saplings, um, they will have, if you get like a little catalog that they have, it'll say DBE and DAE. And what that means is days before and days after Alberta. So it'll say like whatever variety it is, it's 30 days before Alberta. Or it
Mhm.
may be another variety that says 60 days past Alberta. And what
Mhm.
that means, every peach tree is based on that Alberta. And so that's when it produces. So you can,
Mhm.
if you want early, mid, and late, if you want early, you pick this variety, and then a month later or 2 months later, you're going to have Albertas. And then after that, you're going to have late varieties. So
Mhm.
if you go down to Clanton or anywhere that grows peaches in the country, that's what they'll have. They'll have different trees that produce
Mhm.
at different times throughout the growing season.
Mhm.
So,
And
and
that's real
there's,
good when they're not all coming in at the same time.
yeah, and and there's other things that classify peaches too, but that's one of the big ones, like
Uh-huh.
chilling hours, for example. A peach tree has to have a certain amount of cool weather
Mhm.
based on your climate. And there's actually a map on our website, aces.edu.
Mhm.
You can go to that map and it tell you how many days below, oh gosh, I think it's 45 degrees. Don't quote me on that. But it is a certain amount of days or a certain amount of hours below that temperature.
I think we've already taken care
So,
of that for the season back just a
so
couple
yeah,
weeks ago.
yeah, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I've got some things I need to say
Oh,
about
good. I
that.
need to know
So,
about that.
but yeah, chilling hours, uh, the time of year it blooms,
Mhm.
its insect resistance, its disease resistance. I mean, there's a whole lot of factors you're going into when you're going to plant any kind of tree, really, a
Mhm.
peach tree, apple tree,
Mhm.
especially our fruit trees, because there's
Mhm.
sometimes they're grafted onto root stocks that are hardier. So
Mhm.
you might have a peach tree with a different type of root stock that is more resistant to
Mhm.
insect damage or disease or whatever it may be.
Mhm.
And so that's where the real hardcore science comes into that is what kind of rootstock is good for this type of tree and
Mhm.
what's best for it. So they do that with roses too. They'll have some rootstock that's a little more cold hardy or something, and that you they graft that rose, the desirable rose, on top of that rootstock, so it makes it hardier. So
Mhm.
it's really really neat when you get into the grafting and those type things.
Oh man, I just
So
love this. And I wanted to mention this. So you can buy your fruit trees anywhere, basically,
mhm,
but I prefer buying from a locally owned nursery
yeah.
because I have time to spend with you. And I bought mine up in Henniger, Alabama. And so Phil and I went out there one day and we bought two apple, two peach, and two pear, and a couple of pecan trees.
Oh, okay,
So
yeah.
pecan trees have done like nothing yet. That takes a long time for them, though, several years, isn't
Yeah, and it depends on variety. The biggest thing with pecans, and I get gosh, I get tons of questions about pecans. I mean, especially in the spring, when people are, they're starting to, pay attention there, or in the fall, really, is when they really start. Well, my pecan's not producing.
Mhm.
Well, the biggest thing with pecans are there's two things. One, you just got to know that pecans are susceptible to a disease called scab. Pecan
Mhm.
scab is really bad. So if you're going to buy a new variety, it really needs to be one that's resistant to scab, especially here in Alabama. We have a really bad scab problem, and it's a fungal disease, like a lot of things we have here in Alabama. But scab resistant is number one. Number two, people need to understand that as a homeowner, there's not a lot you can do for a pecan. So the only thing we recommend that you do as a homeowner for pecans is fertilize. So clean it up and fertilize. If you fertilize, it will dramatically increase your yield. So if you're old, especially an old pecan tree, if it doesn't have scab, the only thing you can do for it is to fertilize it. So, and there's a formula that we use for a pecan tree, depending on its age, how much you need to use, but they're pretty heavy feeders. So, in general, it's 1 pound per year of age over 25 years old.
That you
So,
just brought up something else. Those things will it's years. We bought an old house in Oxford several years ago, and this house was built in 1885. I
mhm,
promise those trees had to be planted.
probably
They
should
were
be.
huge trees,
Mhm,
and we just gave neighbors. We would call them and say, "Please come and get them.
mhm,
Pick them, and they're yours."
yeah.
We had three of those pecan trees,
Mhm.
three. And we had more pecans than we knew what to do with. We were running over
And
them
they're
with a
expensive too.
car. I know.
Pecans are very
Oh, we
expensive.
were very popular that time of year when the pecans were coming in. We had neighbors we didn't even
Oh yeah,
know. Joe sent me by, said it was okay. I'm like, yes, please.
yeah.
I hate food wasting.
Oh yeah.
I just, I'd rather somebody come and get them.
Mhm.
But I mean, thanks to your knowledge, I mean, I can't get over, and every time Phil gets a jar of peach jam or whatever, he's go, I just like it, Brian Brown. But I'm going, me too. Every time we have one of those fried apple and fried peach pies, we're
Oh
thinking
yeah,
about you too.
yeah.
But yeah, now that we're going to go into a break in just about a minute and a half. We're going to go into two different breaks. But the apple and the pear tree, they're kind of
Mhm.
cousins, aren't they? So you would
Yes.
kind of treat them the same way.
So they're also in the Rosaceae family.
Mhm.
Um, you they're treated a little bit differently, but there are some characteristics that are very similar. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, they are very similar. So
Mhm. So, and then pruning them, you don't go in the middle with those
no,
trees.
no, those are a little bit different.
Hopefully, after I have this class, I'll be able to talk to you a little more.
Yeah, so it's peaches and I mean pears and apples are a little bit different. You don't cut the center of the tree, like the main trunk of the tree. We call that a central leader.
Okay.
You don't cut those, but it depends on the variety, and there's all kind of things. Because we did a tour of North Georgia and North Carolina as a team
Mhm.
this past October, and we saw apples being grown on a trellis, uh,
Mm.
which a trellis is just basically wires,
Mm.
maybe 6 feet tall, 7 feet tall, and they were growing tons of apples. I mean, it looked like these trees were probably 2 or 3 years old, and they were
Mhm.
just weighted down with apples.
Wow.
And these were full grown, huge apples, beautiful.
Mhm.
They were amazing. Some new varieties we
Mhm.
tried. Um, so it just really depends on how you're going to grow and how many you're going to grow. Um, Typically, homeowners really don't. As a young apple tree, you have to train it. So you have to have the right branch angle. So if you have one that's maybe 5 feet tall, you've got to prune it where the branches are kind of at an angle. So you want to
Mhm.
where they'll support the weight of the fruit load.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're hopefully we're going to have a pruning class on for fruit trees coming up soon.
Okay.
So
I want to make sure I go there too.
yeah.
But those apples had Granny Smith apples
Hmm.
this year, and they were the biggest old things you've ever seen in your life. These trees are about 5 years old, if 4 or 5 years old, and I'm very well pleased with how they produced this year. Let's go into a commercial break. We're
Okay.
going to be right back in Just a couple of minutes. You guys hang tight, okay? We'll see you in just a minute. The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018. Get away from it all and get refreshed at our Treehouse Cottages. You will enjoy the memorable getaway with a beautiful interior, a charming outdoor space, and a prime location atop Miracle Pottery and near DeSoto Falls Trail, Little River Canyon, and Rock City. Our cottages are nestled along the foothills of Lookout Mountain and the property features unparalleled natural beauty. Upon arrival, you'll immediately be drawn to the wet weather springs cascading under the cottage. Enter the home and you'll find that the breathtaking beauty of the exterior continues inside. Discover the hidden gems of Lookout Mountain from Spencer's Treehouse Cottage, a one-bedroom, one-bathroom vacation rental cottage. Night owls will appreciate the glow of the moon streaming through the windows, while early risers will love the early morning sunshine. Go to miraclepottery.com for more info. You can also call us at 256-635-6863. Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales look forward to serving you. And you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Fort Payne and Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by the locations in Fort Payne and Gadsden. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. Good afternoon. We are back. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of The Edge, an afternoon drive home. Thank you again so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time. And this is for all of our folks who live all over the world and all over the country. We appreciate you listening to us. You can find us on channel 182 on Charter Communications. That is in the Albertville, DeKalb County, and Marshall County area. They have a little piece in DeKalb County, just one little tiny community. I don't know how that happened, but they're also in Dutton, Alabama. So of all places, right in the middle of DeKalb County. So we appreciate that. And also Abundance TV. Thank you so much for listening. Abundance TV is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. So we have a big audience there. You know, they just added Australia.
Wow.
into the network. It's a big Christian network.
Hmm.
And so they've included Abundant TV. Rob Patz, thank you for making that happen. He's the owner of Abundant TV. And also, Rob told me he was on the show about 2 weeks ago, made another announcement. So we have some places in England who are taking us on just to make fun of my southern accent. And then he said there's another one coming up really soon. So he's going to be talking about that. He'll be on the show and pretty soon about that situation. Brian Brown is with me. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to adopt this kid. He's going to live with me and Phil. So we're going to have you a little place out here to the side. No, we'll build you we'll live in the little place. You can
Yeah.
have the big place. So, but anyway, thank you so much for all your help. And I know people all over who listen to this show, even in other states, are really enjoying
Great.
the info that you're sending out there. Thank you. You're a superstar.
Well, I always appreciate the opportunity to come on and share my knowledge. What limited I do have, I love to share it with people.
He
So,
calls that limited. Don't let him fool you. He's
you know,
got it going up.
the longer you're into it, the more you realize, wow, I really don't know anything about it.
That's about like
So, it's
the older I get, the more I find I need to learn. Really,
yeah.
just because you're 60 something years old doesn't mean you know everything.
Mhm.
But I appreciate everything that you've told us. Now, we've been talking about pruning and that kind of. What about fertilizing trees? How often should you do that?
Yeah, so really, the biggest thing with fertilizer is, fertilize at the beginning of the season, like the beginning of the growing season. So in the spring's a great time to fertilize. You want to hold off on fertilizing anything as you get into fall.
Mhm.
There's some fertilizer you can put out there to help strengthen the root system, but about a tree, you really want to fertilize early. So the earlier you can do that, the more it can take up that fertilizer, and it has all season. I like slow release fertilizer personally, but it just depends on what you're growing. I mean, there's
Does the weather, does that also have something to do with it? And should you, if you know a big rain is coming, should you fertilize before or after the rain?
well, depends.
Like,
Everything depends.
we're going
So
to build an ark out here. I
yeah,
mean, it's really raining a lot
it's
right
pouring
now.
today. So like today, for example, let's say you had just put out fertilizer. There's two things about that. If you put out fertilizer in a rain like today, it may wash it away. So if it's just going to be light rain or you're just expecting an inch or so, it's okay to fertilize. If you're going to have a monsoon like we're having right now, you probably want to hold off on that until afterwards. But right now is not a good time to fertilize. So you stay away from that in the winter. Fertilize in the spring when it gets warmer temperatures. Um, and really, the most important thing is to have a soil test. So if you've not done a soil test before, that is essential. What a soil test will do, and it's very, very simple to do. If you want to grab a box from your local extension agent, no matter where you're at in the country, every county has an extension agent, or every area has an extension agent. Some out west, they have like 5 counties with one office. Here in Alabama, every single county has an office. So you can call your local extension office and tell them, I need a soil test kit. And they will give you a box, and it's $10. You fill up the box with some soil, just take random samples around your yard, about 6 to 8 inches deep, and you put that soil in the box and you mail it to Auburn, and they will test it for you. And your results, what you'll get is pH, which is extremely important to have the correct pH. It will also, if you put the crop that you're going to grow, whether it be a landscape or you're going to do a vegetable garden or trees or pecans or whatever you're growing, it will give you a tailored recommendation for that crop. So let's say you have,
That's good.
yeah, so if you're going to have, like, let's say pecan trees, you say on there, okay, I'm going to have pecan trees. Well, you don't necessarily have to put just pecans and have another soil test for something else. You can submit one soil test. A lot of people don't know this trick, but you can submit one soil test for your entire yard and put pecans, vegetable garden, landscape plants, and you can have 3 different results given to you based on that. So now I will give you a little word of warning. If you have an area that's like a lower spot on your yard, if your yard's not level, you have a higher spot or just something different. Yeah, so if it's just something a little bit different, you may want to do 2 separate tests. But if it's fairly even, it's okay to do one. So
we could actually get in a big refrigerator, empty box, and roll down the backyard. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what it is here.
Yeah. So, but the soil test is very important.
Mhm.
Getting that pH right is essential because what happens with pH is the lower it is, the nutrients are actually bound to the soil particles. So usually especially in Alabama, we have pretty heavy clay soils, especially in North Alabama. We're in the mountains, heavy clay soils, and those particles will bind with those clay soil particles. So as you go up in the pH scale, it's logarithmic. I'm getting into way sciencey stuff here, but
I'm loving it.
uh,
I know you are
but
too.
as the pH goes up,
Mhm.
it releases more of these hydrogen ions.
Okay.
So once you get past 7, you get onto the basic side or a high pH soils. Um, Things are much harder to grow there. Um, so like the black belt in Alabama, it comes down through Selma, Montgomery, kind of like a little swoop like that. Um, they have a really hard time growing things down there. And there are things that will grow that are tolerant of high pH, but most of Alabama is not like that. Most of us have a lower pH. So we have a lot of pine trees and things like that. They love whatever's native there. That's what typically grows is
And
pine
we just got
trees.
to know what's native. Like in
Yeah,
North Alabama, there are things we can't grow here that can grow in South Alabama,
correct.
which is like another planet as
It
far as we're
is.
concerned.
Yeah, and as an indicator plant, there's certain plants that grow in those areas. So like
Mhm.
for example, if you drive I-22 to Memphis, up through Walker County, where I'm from originally, you go up through there. When you enter into Mississippi, you kind of get the edge of the Black Belt. So if you look, when you go I-22 up from Birmingham to Memphis, when you cross that state line, you'll start seeing cedar trees. And
Mhm.
cedar trees, if you see a whole lot of cedar trees, that is a pretty good indicator that you have a high pH soil.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of
Okay.
things that you can, like if you, for example, there's another tree. It's oh gosh, caught me off guard here. But um, no, I think it's a post oak. I think it's a post oak. It's a indicator of a high dry site. It may be a
Oh,
southern red. I think it's a southern
okay.
red actually. But there are trees that will indicate what type of soil you
Well,
have.
like, we couldn't grow a palm tree here, probably.
Actually, you probably can.
Really?
There are actually
I love
palms.
palm trees.
We call them hardy palms, and hardy
Uh-huh.
palms are hardy. Now, this kind of segues into a good subject to talk about. But there are hardy palms available that will withstand the cold temperatures.
Okay, now I'm
So,
getting one. Phil's
yeah,
getting nervous in there.
yeah. So you really but you have to make sure that the hardy palm is what you're getting. You're not getting something that you're going to
Okay.
grow down in South Alabama.
Uh-huh.
So something like a sago palm, these little
Uh-huh.
short palms.
Uh-huh.
Sagos don't like cold weather.
Uh-huh.
I've seen many of them down in, especially when I lived down in the Auburn area. They would get hit and they would turn just completely brown and just lose every leaf they have. So,
Uh-huh.
um, but yeah, but that brings us into what we had recently here in Alabama. We had our big freeze Christmas.
Oh,
So what temperature did we get here?
oh my goodness. Now I know the wind chill was -0. Okay, it was several degrees minus.
Yeah.
And so it was around 10. We got 5 one day. One morning I
Oh
woke up
wow.
and it was just like I thought I was in Siberia.
Yeah, it was. Let's see. So I live in Arab, and but actually it was close. It was really Christmas Eve, I guess,
Yeah,
was when it happened. And
very
I was already.
cold.
Went to visit my parents down
Mhm.
in Walker County, and I think we got down to 7.
It was,
It was
yeah.
very cold.
Uh-huh.
But what's interesting about that is if you go out now, and I actually took some video before I came here, um, a lot of plants are dead now, and they have a lot of cold damage. So even the pansies, which are, they're great for wintertime growth, the pansies they're mush. They have
Mhm.
turned to mush now because what happened is those ice crystals punctured the cell walls of that. And they're herbaceous plants, so
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
are, they're non woody. It's a herbaceous
Mhm.
plant. Well,
Mhm.
they just, they break those cell walls and they're not rigid anymore, so they just turn to mush.
That's what happened to my lettuce.
Yeah, and I've already gotten 2 calls this morning on tea olive.
Oh.
So if you have an osmanthus or tea olive, they're goners. So they now.
Say bye-bye.
Well, I say that they're not really goners. Depending the thing that I'm telling everybody right now is if you do have cold damage, you really need to wait. That's really the only thing we can do is just wait until spring, and see what happens. So wait. If you start to see some growth, some buds coming out, it's probably going to make it. If it's an established tree or shrub or whatever it is, it may make it. If it's a brand new planting, I don't know. It may not make it. Those new plantings, they're used to being babied in a nursery, and then you put them out in this cold weather. They didn't have time to get their roots dug in. No pun intended there. But yeah, they didn't have time to establish a good root system, so they may not make it. It just depends. It's a toss-up.
And I want to bring everything in. Even the cows, I'd bring them in when it gets super cold out there. You know.
Yeah.
But I was even thinking plants. I brought a bunch of things in.
Yeah, and with a freeze like that, there's a couple of different freezes. One's called an advective freeze. There's called a radiation freeze. If it's an advective freeze, that has the high winds, really, really cold temperatures, and it comes on suddenly. That's kind of what we had. Not a lot you can do about it. A radiation freeze is slower. You kind of get acclimated. So
it's kind of like a tornado versus hurricane.
Yeah.
With a tornado, it just happens. Hurricane, you got a little time to prepare for it.
Yeah, that's right. So, and there's some different things that you can do. Covering your plants with that type of freeze, though, it's just hard. It's hard to cover every single plant in your yard. So just give it some time. See if it comes out in the spring. If it does, great. If it doesn't, there's a couple things you can do. Dig it up just throw it away and start all over, unfortunately. But you can
do. If you don't do that, could you get disease ridden?
You can, because what that will do, that kind of opens up an opportunity for disease to come in. It wounds the plant.
See, I'm learning a little bit.
Yeah, so if a plant is wounded, whether it be from freeze or damage or anything like that, that does invite some opportunity for fungal or bacteria or viral diseases to come in.
It's just to start over.
Yeah. So, but there's a thing you could do to see if it is alive. So if you wait, let's say March, when things are sap's starting to rise in the plants, do what's called the scratch test. And a scratch test is where you just go to the tip of the limb and just take your fingernail and just scratch a little bit of the bark off and see if it's green, you're good to go. And it's probably going to bloom out and you're probably going to get some new leaves. If it's brown or if it's brittle, it's a goner.
My granddad used to do that. He'd get his fingernail, get his pocket knife out and do that. He'd go, that's a good one.
Yeah. So you could definitely do that. But you may want to go down into, like if it's a landscape plant, you can go down into the canopy of the tree or shrub, and usually those are a little more resistant because they got a little more heavier wood on there, so they may make it. You may have to do a little trimming, so just wait. Osmanthus are really bad. Apparently every one of those in the whole county got struck. So, but yeah, just give it some time and wait for it to come back out. And then if you do have some dead limbs, just go ahead and prune those out. Make a smooth cut across them, and you'll be good.
That sounds good, but we need to wait until about February to do that.
Probably March. Yeah, that's when things start to bloom out a little bit more. So really, March and April that's when you're really gonna see what kind of damage you actually had. So
okay, let's go ahead and cut into another commercial break. We're going to be right back in just a few minutes. You guys hang in there, okay?
Let Rhonda at Rhonda's Elite Tax LLC take the burden off you for all your tax needs. I know because Rhonda has been taking care of my business since 2013. I feel Rhonda works for me because she knows the direct questions to ask to better benefit my unique business in order for me to get back the biggest refund possible. Rhonda is an ongoing student, and she knows tax laws are in a constant change every year. Call 256-281-9903 for an appointment to take the dread out of getting your taxes done. Rhonda is located at 11968 U.S. Highway 431 in Boaz. Again, that number is 256-281-9903. And let Rhonda's Elite Tax LLC champion your personal and business taxes. We're about to make your life just a little bit easier. Join Tony and April at Tony's Pizza and Subs in Center and Cedar Bluff, Alabama. We're cooking up some hot, delicious pizzas, and we'd like to bake one for you. We are home-owned, not a chain, and our pizzas are fresh, homemade with our dough made fresh daily. We have a full menu including fresh, never frozen wings, salad bars, suds sandwiches, and much more. In Center, we have a private dining area for birthday parties, club meetings, and other events. We'll be waiting for you at 1820 East Bypass in Center, and in Cedar Bluff, 3812 Alabama Highway 9. For your convenience, you can call in your order at our Center location, 256-92-PIZZA, or Cedar Bluff, 256-557-8651. And we enjoy making your life easier.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and my employees and I want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support. With everything going on right now, your rest is so important. That's why we're having the biggest MyPillow sale ever. Not only are my bed pillows as low as $19.98, but you can get the best body pillows ever. Regular $89.98, now only $29.98. Take your rest on the go with our Roll and Go Anywhere MyPillows for only $14.98. And we have our new couch and accent pillows. They aren't just for looks. They have MyPillow's patented adjustable fill that gives you that amazing MyPillow comfort. In this economy, you get the best gifts ever for the best prices ever. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code and you get deep discounts on body, couch, bolster pillows, and so much more, including my original bed pillows for as low as $19.98. Please order now while quantities last.
Good afternoon. We are back. My name is Donna Thiesel. I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home and The Edge. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, as we get to ride home with you in the afternoon and learn a lot of stuff from Brian Brown here. I'm always so excited to have you on the show. And we do appreciate all of your knowledge. We've been talking about pruning and what we need to do. I can hardly wait for the spring. I just do not like winter time. When you look outside and see all the dead stuff. So I'm already ready to plant trees. I mean, not trees, but seeds. I'm ready to get those things in the ground. But I wanted to ask you, and I've ordered this thing from a company, and it's going to be coming in pretty soon. And it's like this aqua planting something or another. I don't know what you call it. Let me go see if I can find it real quick.
Aqua.
Yeah, you plant. You're not using soil. You're just using water.
Yeah, so it's a hydroponic system.
There you go.
Okay.
That's why I keep him around.
Yeah, so hydroponics is an interesting. I don't know. I don't know a ton about
Well,
hydroponics.
we're going together on this because I want to see what
So
I am excited.
I've seen some really neat systems, and there's some that like what's the little ones you put on your countertop? The little arrow gardens. Those are actually hydroponic systems, and basically what it does is it takes a nutrient solution, something dissolved in water, and as long as that water is flowing over the roots, those root hairs will take up the nutrients and grow. So it's considered a soilless media. So there's a lot of different hydroponic systems. There's some.
I've got this one right here. So that's what's coming in.
Yeah.
My husband thinks I'm the weirdest woman ever. He always says, "What do you want for Christmas?" or whatever you want. It's always either a tool or something. And I said, "I want one of those." And I mentioned this. I said, "That's what I want right there."
Yeah.
And I'm really so excited to get this. Of course, it was because of supply versus demand. It's late getting here. Should be here tomorrow.
Oh, great.
So the next time you come,
yeah, we'll have to check it out.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun with that thing.
So yeah, I've seen a couple of hydroponic systems that were, I've seen them all the way from, like I said, the tabletop ones with the little arrow garden things,
This
things
has
like
a pump
that.
to it.
Yeah, or I've seen them all the way up to huge industrial systems where they were lettuce is a really popular
Yeah.
hydroponic plant that you can grow.
Well, they're saying a lot less disease too.
Yeah, so it's usually in a controlled environment, which means essentially a greenhouse. It's grown in a greenhouse that's protected. But the one I saw, there's one actually below Birmingham that's really, really neat. I think they're called Southern Organics, and they grow for some high-end grocery stores. And so what they're doing is they have little, let's say, 3-foot tall, essentially pools that are maybe like 2 foot wide and 50 feet long. And so what they do is they take foam board, like insulation on your house, and they got little holes all in it. And they take the lettuce and they put them in those little holes and they float them on that water. And that water is constantly being churned up, and it's aerated, so it's always got oxygen. You have to have oxygen for plants to take up the nutrients. So it's
not
always
just
being
sitting
stirred.
in
No,
water,
it will
because
not.
if it ever just sits in water, it's just not going to
Yeah, so you have to have some kind of oxygen in there.
constant flow.
Yeah, and so that's what happens when your plants flood. Is you get like we're getting right now, we're getting too much water. If they can't drain, they're just sitting in water. So as long as you get oxygen in that water, those plants will take up those nutrients. But in that system, they were floating them, and as they got to the end and they were ready to harvest, they would take those out, and then they'd push the other ones down the line. So they always had a constant supply of lettuce that they were producing. But they also had a certain fish that they were using. So if they had, they were fertilizing, so they had the fish, and they call it effluent, but it's fish poo, basically. So they would take that and they would fertilize the plants with those. And so they would also, if they had some kind of disease or something, depending on what that disease was, they would use a certain type of fish to control that disease. So it was really, really interesting.
I mean, that's really recycling.
Yeah,
too.
so it's really neat, but it's a whole new world when you start getting into
I'm
hydroponics.
getting into that world. I really am. I saw this on television. It was some of the big cities like Chicago and New York, where people are putting these together. They're buying these old warehouses, and so they're putting all this in these big warehouses, and so they're able to actually have food instead of a garden where there's hardly any land. You'll hardly see any dirt in New York or in Chicago. We've been there, so that's just the way it is. It's all city and then water all around it anyway, and so they're using that as a way to feed folks, and I think that's just a grand idea. I love it.
So if you really want to see one in action, you can go down to Auburn, and they will give you a tour. They have a what's it called? It's the big boxes that come on the 18-wheeler containers. I couldn't think of the word, sorry. The big shipping containers. And so they have converted a shipping container into a grow facility. They got 2 of them, and it's really neat. If you ever see an Auburn commercial come on, you'll see these like purple lights, and they have some guys looking at they're growing on a wall. So they're growing all this lettuce and these leafy greens on a wall. And so what they do is they take water, and that water will drain down that wall and fertilize the plants and water the plants. And so what they're doing with that is they're supplying the fresh vegetables for campus. And they take all those leafy greens, so all those salads that they're making every day, they come from that one facility or those 2 shipping containers. So it's a really neat system, and it's really attracted a lot of students. And when you see, if you're watching a football game, which Auburn didn't play in a game, a bowl game, but that's one of the emphasis of that's the thing they really want to promote Auburn with. So they're actually using some clips from that greenhouse in promoting Auburn as a university. So if you happen to see that one, you can look it up on YouTube. But it's really neat. And there's several ones. We actually had a former student. She's in Mobile. Her and her husband started a urban farm using shipping containers in downtown Mobile. And they grow fresh fruits, fresh vegetables in her little shipping container. And I think it's called Ship Shape Farms. So they're they've really grown their business from just nothing. And she was a student of mine, so it's really really
Course it
cool
was.
to see one of those students who who's been successful.
You just take it to the next level and just
Yeah,
do
yeah.
whatever you have to
They've
do.
gotten, several TV interviews and
Oh, that's
people's
so
came,
great. I'd like to talk to her.
yeah, oh yeah, it's
Yeah, give
really
me the info.
yeah, I'll show you the site. So it's
Mhm.
really neat. But it's cool to see some of your when I worked at Auburn. Well, I still work for Auburn. Anyway, it's a long story. But yeah, it's just cool to see what people are doing with their
Mhm.
knowledge that they learn from horticulture. So
Well, folks who live in town, you live in an apartment, you can still have a garden
yeah,
and
absolutely.
growing vertical.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some it doesn't matter. You can grow a lot in a small area. And a lot of people don't realize that. You don't have to have an acre and a half. If you got an acre and a half, you're going to be busy. You can. There's a guy that's he's a horticulturist in Mississippi. I think he works for Mississippi Extension, or used to. He's retired now, but he has little grow boxes. They're called earth boxes, and they're small and they're on wheels.
Mhm.
So he can kind of move them around if you don't like it, or if they're not getting enough sun or
Mhm.
whatever. He can move them around, and they're not that expensive, honestly. $30 or so, but they're just they're good solid boxes that you can grow a lot of vegetables in.
Mhm.
And they have a trellis you can put on there.
Mhm.
So if you have like tomatoes or something like that, you can grow them in that trellis.
Mhm.
But you don't even have to buy that. You can take a 5-gallon bucket, and that's one of the programs that we do. Is we use 5-gallon buckets to grow vegetables in.
Uh-huh.
So one of our programs is called Grow More, Give More.
Mhm.
That's what we use to go do demonstrations. To say, hey, look, you don't have to have a huge amount of land. You just need a place to put a 5-gallon bucket and
Mhm.
some sunlight.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
That's it. Just hang it up somewhere and let
Yeah.
it go.
Yeah. So we if you do use a 5-gallon bucket or even a 2-gallon bucket, we do recommend you drill holes in the bottom where it can drain. That's essential. But if you do that, you can grow a lot of vegetables in a 5-gallon bucket.
You can grow
So-
lots of stuff. And let me tell you something. I don't throw away the bottoms of the cabbages anymore.
Yeah.
Do you not put those in shallow water? You have to change the water out, about every day or so. And I've also, like the bottoms of onions,
Yep.
I've taken that off and put that also in the same shallow water. And I have some onions growing in the house right now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't throw anything away. If I think it can have any kind of a root to it,
Well, you need to start growing a pineapple then.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
do that.
Just
I'm
take
gonna
the
get
top
another-
off that pineapple and
You'll grow a
stick
pineapple.
it on the ground.
Will
Yeah.
it grow into a tree?
No, pineapples are not trees.
Oh, they're not. What
No,
are they?
they're like tiny little shrubs. They,
Is that true?
yeah, yeah, they don't grow on
Learn
trees.
something else.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna get one.
Yeah, yeah. See if you can find one that's smaller. The smaller ones are usually sweeter
Okay.
because they're taking all those nutrients and putting it into
Uh-huh.
a smaller package.
Uh-huh.
So just like I told you with the peaches,
Uh-huh.
the smaller they are, the sweeter they are.
Uh-huh.
So always remember that for any kind of fruit.
I will. And also remember what you said about the muscadines.
Mhm.
And so we've had a lot of muscadine juice this year too.
Yeah.
And that's really turned out. And it's really sweet. I really do love the way these things turned out.
Yeah, muscadines, and you have to prune muscadines. You absolutely
gotta.
have to. They bloom on that new wood, and they produce fruit on that new wood. So you have to prune them back every single
I
year.
thought we'd kill them.
Yeah,
I mean, because you said, nope, got to take all that off.
and they will bleed. So
That's why I thought I'd kill
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
I thought, oh no, I've killed them.
yeah. So when you make that cut, especially, it's actually better to wait a little bit later. So you don't want to cut one back right now. A lot of people do it in February. If you could push it just a little bit further, it's probably a little bit better if you
Maybe
could
about
push it.
mid-March or so.
I wouldn't wait till mid-March. Early to mid-March is probably
Okay.
okay. But do that. Prune it back to 2 to 3 nodes,
Mhm.
and you'll have much better fruit. And much better, higher quality fruit. And when you prune it, you're gonna have a mess. There's a lot of vines that come off those things, but you have to prune it.
But you
And-
know something? My other gift that I wanted for Mother's Day was a wood chipper. I know it sounds I'm weird, but that's the perfect thing. I mean,
Yeah.
because I chipped all those little pieces of wood. We didn't have to burn anything,
And
we're
put it
not
in your
adding
mulch
any
pile.
of that. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the
So,
bees loved it. I don't know
Yeah.
if there's just something about that smell,
mhm.
and so the bees loved it. And I'm really glad we got bees too, by the way.
Yeah, there's great. And there's a lot of things you can do with that, but that's one of the things that you can do this winter. Maybe push it out a little bit later, but definitely, coming up next month is about when we need to start thinking about pruning.
My granddad was a peanut farmer.
Hmm.
And so right here on this land, we bought the farm, the family farm. So I'm going to plant some peanuts this year.
Oh yeah,
I can hardly wait to make my own peanut butter.
peanuts are really fast. I think I'm amazed by peanuts the way they grow because they flower under the canopy of the.
It's going to be
'Cause
tricky
they're-
knowing. So I don't remember. I remember he had the farm, but I didn't pay much attention. I wish
Yeah.
I'd listened more.
So they, a lot of people have grown. My dad grew peanuts, but it was a little bit sandy. That's why they grow them in South Alabama because it's just sandy soils down there. But yeah, peanuts are really interesting. So what they do is they flower underneath the canopy of the plant, and they come up with little yellow flowers, and because they're legumes, right? So they produce their own nitrogen. So they will come up with the flower under the canopy, and once they're fertilized, they will droop down and kind of turn down, and then go to the soil, and then they start growing into the soil. So it's just fascinating to
I
me.
can't wait to see
That
it.
process is called pegging. So the little flowers are called pegs, and so that process is called pegging. And so once it pegs, you start
So
digging
they'll
into the
grow
ground.
up like that, and then just kind of grow back
Yeah.
down and go into the ground.
So they're not actually called, it's a peanut, but they're not a nut. We treat them as nuts, but they're not
They're
nuts.
almost like a bean, aren't they?
Yeah, they're legumes. Yeah, so back in the old days they called them goober peas. That's one. of them.
Remember
They
the
were-
old song?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I know Andy Griffith used
Yeah.
to sing eating on goober peas. But that's really what they are.
And they're so
they're
good for
peas.
you. The protein is just,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's the best. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, actually, there's a plant that actually tastes like peanut butter.
Oh.
There's
I'm a
I
big
think
peanut
it's
butter
called K-Tuck. I learned about this when I went to a thing in South Florida. It grows in really, really harsh areas like overseas, like in the desert and stuff. It loves hot, dry environments, but it's one of the highest protein plants that there are. And it tastes a little bit like the texture is like spinach, but it tastes like peanut butter. It is a really
Oh, I would
odd
like
sensation. But you eat one and you're like, oh, that's kind of like spinach, and then the aftertaste, like you can feel that aftertaste come in the back of your throat. It's like, I just ate peanut butter. That's kind of like spinach, but yeah, it's an odd one. So
I'm looking for protein, ways to grow protein, because we don't know what's going to happen, food shortages and stuff
yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
coming up. It could get worse. So I'm just preparing, and I know a lot of you are too, because you're sending me messages that you are. And we hope that you're learning something. It's about a minute and a half left in this segment. What would you like to tell the folks before you go?
well, just be on the watch for our programs that we're going to be offering in our area. If you're in other parts of the state, we'll have other agents that are putting on different programs. Just like I said, just go to the Facebook page, look for your county. So we're in DeKalb County, Alabama. So you say DeKalb County Facebook and DeKalb County Extension, and you'll see all of our events. We do have Master Gardener coming up, which Donna is going to be a student of ours. She's going to be considered an intern, Master Gardener intern this year. And so that's coming up. And just lots of different programs. So we've and we're starting a podcast. So that's
Okay,
that's a
trouble
new
there.
one. I'll be the host. It's
Of
called
course you are.
Yeah. So we're gonna call it From the Ground Up,
From the ground up.
and it will be coming soon. So I haven't recorded one yet, but
Okay, make sure you
it's
let me
coming
know,
soon.
because you know
So,
I'm going to be your number one fan.
Yeah. So
I'll
we're excited
definitely-
about that. So
Thank you so much for watching The Edge. We are so proud to be with you today. And if you have any questions, send an email to my way. Okay, Donna at afternoondrivehome.com. Donna at afternoondrivehome.com. But we appreciate you watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 o'clock. And on actually on Abundant TV, they actually air the show twice a day. So I never know when they're going to do it, though. But one time for sure is at 1 p.m., and that's Central Time. Thank you so much for watching. You're the apple of my eye. I promise you are. Stay tuned for another exciting guest. We'll be back shortly.